So let's see. I have left this drawing for a few days so I can see it with a fresh eye, and there are a few problems with it. Some of them I can correct it, but some of them I think I don't. So it seems to me that I had made a little bit rounder the eye, so I will need to go over this shape a little bit. This shape I can't correct it, it's already dark, so it will not be corrected, and this part I will it will be possible to be corrected because this part needs to be a little bit more darker. So I will start with this part here with the correction because sometimes leaving your drawing for a few days it can be beneficial so that you can see your drawing with a fresh eye. So I'm going after this shape with an H pencil, and also need to work further this shape because here it seems that the shape needs to be lost a little bit, so it's not just a line as you see now, it's a little bit lost. So I'm just going with an H pencil once, and then I take my HB pencil because it needs to be a little bit more darker, so I'm not pushing too hard. And going over it, right? And also I need to go over this part which needs to be a little bit darker. It seems that the HB pencil it's a little bit too dark for that, so I will take the H pencil back. Right, working in a cross-hatching style. It seems to me that the drawing took about 5 hours till now, and that's a good time. I remember in my starting days, which weren't the starting days, because this kind of studies were made after 1 year, almost 2 years of drawing, so it's not kind of starting day, but I mean that when I have started this kind of studies, I think it took me about 30-40 hours one of these drawings, and they were a lot bigger drawings. Now you can see that this is an A4 paper, it's almost an A4, it's a little bit bigger, but I had about let's see, 4 higher and 2 times longer, wider paper for this drawing, so I really did this kind of studies on really big sheets of paper, so it was pretty time consuming, but making this kind of studies from different angles, I had the opportunity to have this nice plaster model in our school, so we made at least 3 angles of the same model, which means that it took us at least 60, 80, about 90 hours of study just for the eye, but once did these studies, they are a tremendous help for the future, and I had also the opportunity to make the same study, the eye study, not just in drawing, in my third year of drawing, but I had the opportunity at the university, at the faculty, where I was studying sculpture. I had the opportunity to make this model live in clay, so it was also a great experience from which I have learned a lot. We have made this kind of studies in clay, and we turned them to plaster. The thing is that I don't have them, because everything you do in the university belongs to the university, so the best works were used as pedagogical instruments. They were used for other students to learn from them, and those which were a little bit less good, they were destroyed, or they weren't turned to plaster, because plaster didn't been too cheap, so only a few of us had their work turned to plaster. So that was a pretty nice achievement when your work was turned to plaster. So right, working with pencil has a little bit advantage, because the pencil has a nice easy to handle, but the problem with the pencil is that you need more time, but it's easier to handle, and it's easier to make some good details. So it's beneficial for those who are starting to learn to draw, to use pencil. One more thing is beneficial because pencil has a different degree of hardness and softness. So even if your hand is a little bit harder, and that doesn't mean that you can't do a pretty nice soft drawing, because you can use a wide range of pencils. If you have softer touch, you can use softer pencils, and if you are a little bit hard-handed, then you can use a harder pencil, which will help you to achieve more light values. It's great for this kind of pencils are great for beginners to exercise. They are pretty easy to be erased, so it's easy to erase your mistakes. Also, I'm watching here, we have a nice edge. It seems to me that we have a nice edge, so we need to be careful with that edge. As you can see, I use a pretty sharp pencil for this, for detailing, and this needs to start that nice eyebrow, which will start to have here a nice shape. I'm starting to draw out the shapes so I can start detailing the shadows. So I am looking where the drawing will be the most lighter, so we will have the most light here and here, so those parts will be needed to left white, so I will need to darken here a little bit. So I'm going with my H pencil. As you can see, all the time I'm looking after the whole picture, so I don't miss some big shapes. I'm not working on just one part, so I am able to recognize those parts which needs to be worked. So here we will have the first shape, right? And here we will have the other one, and here we will have a lot of shadow, right? and I am sketching out some shapes without making any details. So I see that this shape is going like this, and it needs to be a little bit more darker. It's not that white, right? And here we will have much more shadow, right? Here we have a lot of shadow, a lot of form change, so I will go over, right? I will use my HB pencil so I can darken a little bit, not too much. Let's see from a different angle, right? Okay, start to take shape. Also this part has a lot of turning, so we will need to have a little bit more shadow on this part. Right. We need to remember here we have the most white, so we will leave the papers white there. Right. And here we have a shape which will come like this, right? And here a little bit more darker. As you can see, I use a piece of paper beneath my hand so I don't mess up my drawing, right? Some other part of the paper is pretty messed up. It's because the graphite, but if we would if we wouldn't use the paper, that would be more bad. So I will come with HB pencil here, turning a little bit the form, and it starts to have a nice texture, cross-hatching texture, right? Now it starts to turn the shape. We need to work on this part also a little bit to darken. And as you can see, it's turning. It starts to turn if you are watching the forms and how the shapes are going, right? We need to work on this part a little bit also. And as you can see, I have worked a little bit on this part, but I start to go over it, over the whole surface. So I'm not just doing a small detail on the eyebrow. I am watching the whole drawing coming through, and I am able to control all the shadows, right? And I use my H pencil wherever I need a soft transition, like this, here. I also need to mention that we did this kind of exercise, a study, not just with the eye. We did this for on the nose. The nose we did a little bit more angles, so we did at least 4 or 5 angles with the nose. It's a pretty simple shape, the nose, but it has a lot of views, and to learn a lot about them you need to make the right angle. So we did also the mouth, at least 3 angles for the mouth, and also we did the ear, so that was also interesting to make the ear from different angle. Now I'm using an no, it's a 6B pencil. It's pretty new. I bought it last week because I have run out from 6B, and 8B I barely have a small chunk of 8B, like this is my last one, and I think that I have one more 8B. It's a little bit longer than the other one, but I have both on a 6B, so I don't miss if my 8B starts to get finished. So usually I don't buy too much pencils, but when I have money I buy 1 or 2 of them, and I watch them. If they are starting to finish, then I buy 1 more, so I don't have too much pencils. I don't spend too much money for them, but I am careful that I don't run out from 1 pencil. So since this is the thing I want to make, I make art, and lately I didn't make too much art. I made a lot of studies after old masters and all those things, and learned a lot of anatomy. I didn't do too much art, but all these works and studies I have to have my pencils. So I really don't sharpen too much the pencil, so I use a cutter, a paper cutter for sharpening my pencils, because I don't waste my pencil by cutting from the graphite. I just take down the the wood, and then I sharpen on a piece of sandpaper, so I don't really waste the graphite from the pencil, so I use every bit of it. Most of the time I have some small tool which can take my pencil inside. So then I have some small pencils like this. Yeah, I have this tool. It's pretty old. It's from my grandfather. It has a hole inside, right? And I put my pencil inside. For sure it moves, but it has this nice copper thing, and when I put it inside it doesn't move, and I can in that way I can use my all the pencil till the last bit, so I don't waste my pencils. Right, now let's see, we have here, let's take the H pencil. This H pencil starts to be small. It's almost too small to draw with it, so in the not far future I will have to use the holder. So here this part will be in shadow. So as you can see, the shape, it comes like this, and then it goes inside, and then it goes outside and goes inside. So when it goes outside, there will be light. When it goes inside, there will be shadow. So, and between light and shadow, here as you can see, we have a pretty nice transition, which isn't too hard, but it's not too soft, because we have there some muscles and we have the line of the bone beneath it, so it needs to be a little bit harder, the edge, right? And we have some other stuff going on here. We have a nice shadow here, right, which goes over here, right? Here it disappears almost, right? And here it comes back. We have a harder edge there, so we will put some shadow beneath it, right? And as you can see, it starts to have a shape, and this shape, it goes like this, right? And for sure it's not visible on the video, but all these shapes I do draw them with an H pencil, really transparent, and so that it's visible for me and it's easier to maintain the shape when I start to make the shadow. So here we have a shape which goes like this, right? So I draw the shape, and I start to develop the light. and shadow, having in mind that shape. Right, and from here we have also a nice darker shape, which needs to be a little bit more pressed. So I use a pretty sharp pencil. Alright, let's see further. Let's use the HB pencil and let's make some shadow beneath. Alright, and we need to be careful because that shadow isn't that sharp, so we need to go over it with the HB pencil. Right, and also we can go with a little bit eraser. As I thought at the beginning, we will need a good eraser for details, so a gummy eraser, it's a must for this kind of drawings. Gummy erasers have the advantage that they don't mess up the graphite. Right? They don't have grease on them, and so it doesn't make the paper greasy like the other erasers. Right? Let's go over this shape a little bit because it seems to me that it needs to be darker, so right. Okay, let's see here, this part needs to be turned a little bit, so needs a little bit more shadow. HB pencil. Also, it's interesting that if you watched all the episode of this study, I barely used B pencil. Most of the time B pencils were used for background. Seems to me that this line needs to be a little bit more straight, so let's cut a little bit from it. Let's sharpen this a little bit, it's a 6B. Right, so we can make a nice edge. Right, I cut down a little bit from the shape, and also here on this part. a little bit more, and right. Oh, that starts to get better. These are just some adjustments which help us to get the perfect shape. Right? Even if it's not perfect, it's not a problem. It's a drawing which from which we are learning a lot, so it's not that important that needs to be exactly the same. So it's just a learning process. If you don't like something, you can remake it anytime. Right? If you don't like to use paper beneath your hand, you can use a stick like this, right? And you can put it like this, and you can put your hand on the stick, and you can draw without touching your drawing. Sometimes it's more beneficial. It's more practical to draw like this, right? I have put a sock on it so it doesn't ruin my paper. If I use the other part, I don't put it on my paper so it doesn't ruin. So you can put anywhere on your table, right? And you can rest your hand on it, and you can start working from this small stand. Right? It's a great help some of the time, and it's a little bit more practical than a paper, but sometimes a paper helps you to have a little bit more closer to your drawing. So a lot of time I use paper for this kind of work. Let's use a different eraser after the gummy eraser, right? Okay, seems to me that the shape isn't what it needs to be, so I will use also the eraser, the gummy eraser. right? And H pencil. You see, all the time I go back and watch about what I did before, and I see mistakes, and yeah. The thing is that you don't need to draw perfectly, but you need to go back and see your flaws and start to make some corrections on your forms and shadows, and after time your drawing will start to become better and better because of that, right? Alright, let's see. This needs to be darker because it's not white. It's not getting the most light, so it needs to be a little bit darker. And this time I am using H pencil so I don't darken too much, right? That's important, not to darken too much from the first pass. Alright. We talk about this, that we have the main light here, so this part needs to be a little bit darker. So here the shape was broken a little bit. So the minute I have made that part, it seems that it's turning much more, right? And on this part we have a little bit bounced light right between, so it's visible, and with a gum eraser you can take out a little bit and you can gum back with an H pencil so it doesn't become too light, but it's visible, yeah, it's visible. Right. We have the same light on the edge of the pupil, this part, right here, and we are going with the gum eraser, right? Now it's visible. The gum eraser has the advantage that you can make any kind of shape from it. You can make it like a pencil, like this, right? You can use it like with an edge, and then you can go back with our H pencil and go over those parts which have been erased, right? Right. Another good thing about gum erasers that you can tap and you can take out some light with it if you are tapping, right? You see that this part started to be a little bit lighter, so I will go over the light part like this, right? And I will start to darken a little bit more. Right, I will take my HB pencil, right, very fine. Right, it seems that it's turning right now. Let's make an edge here. Right, and let's go back with the pencil. Right, take the H pencil. Right, it's much better now. Darkening a little bit more, right, and having a little bit more here. HB pencil. Right, that's good, that's really good. Not quite, but it's better. Okay, let's see this part. Let's start to draw those nice shapes. We have a shape here which is going to go like this, right? We have another shape which has the line like that, right? This line here, it fades out, and we start to have a line here, right? We have a line from here, right? We have one here, right? One here. It's one more here, which isn't too much visible. Here and here we have a light, piece of light, and we have, right? And as you can see, these kind of lines are drawn very fine lines, so I can erase if it's needed, but I need to draw them so I can go and develop them. We have a light here also, right? Here we have the shape which is going like this. That's a muscle, so we need to define it. If you don't do it, it will be a little bit more unnatural. Right, and this part needs to be a little bit more. Right, okay, it starts to have a nice shape. Need to go over this a little bit darker, so I will take my HB pencil. Let's make sharper. Alright, and let's get it. When we have sharp lines, we can make some really fine tuned cross-hatching. So that's the main reason I have a sharp pencil all the time, so I can make some nice sharp line cross-hatching with a lot of detail in it. And that's why I use a sandpaper for making the edge of the pencil. So most of the time I have my pencil like this, the edge of my pencil, and this is the wood part, right? And with the sandpaper I make an angle like this, which results in a pretty nice edge. So that's and since I don't make the edge cylindrical, I don't waste much of the pencil. Right, as it is visible now, it starts to take the shape. We need to work on this shape also a little bit later. So let's see, let's work on this a little bit. We need a nice sharp pencil, so it's a small detail. Since it was drawn before, it's easier to me to follow the shape. Right, there I will take my HB pencil and before I do too much details, I am looking to my drawing from a distance. Alright, let's continue. Alright, let's see. We have a nice indentation here. Right. And we have white line near it, so we will have a value there beside it. Right. And we have another one right here. Right. Maybe it's a little bit longer. Right. And we have some light on the upper part, so it's like that. And we have one more here. Right. And all this has a nice value because it's not white, right? So the value changes are very important. Right, okay. So most of the time you see that I change the HB with the H pencil, so I'm not using too much variety of pencils. Right, the most white it's this part, so I will need the eraser, so I will take a little bit out that part, and I will tap here a little bit, so right. We have here a nice shape. Right. And another one which is going like this. Right. And another one. I'm just delimiting, I'm just making the sign, right? And then I'm taking the eraser and making the light, right? And going back with the H pencil. Going over it. So let's see, we have another light on this edge. Another good thing could be if you have nice eraser. You can cut a little bit your eraser. So I have an eraser which I cut, and I can make them a nice light there, right? And that light isn't that hard, so I will need to go over it, but right, so it's visible now. And this is coming like this, and here we have our other shape, which is going like this. I'm backing up with a little bit HB pencil, so it's a little bit harder, right? And there we have a nice light. So I will need to have a pretty sharp eraser. Right in this part, so let's see. Right, it's not the best erasers, but the ink is thin, and going with the H pencil. HB. Alright. Okay. And this part needs to be a little bit less dark, so I will tap with my gummy eraser. Right, and here we have a little bit more darkness. It's just a matter of observing. So the more time you give, the more precise it will be. Right? Being careful not to darken that line too much, because it doesn't need to come out from the background. So I will tap with my gummy eraser, and I will go back with a pencil over it, so it doesn't come out too dark. Right? And since my paper is small, I barely can make those kind of details. Alright, so let's go further with this part. Here we have a nice shape also. Right. And we have a light there, so we take the eraser and take out some light there. And we go back and adjust it with the pencil, right? For sure, not all the details will be visible on the drawing, on the video, but at the last part of the video I will scan the drawing, or I will make a picture of it, so it will be much visible how it is and how it looks. So now here we need to make a little bit more change, so we will start to make a little bit transition, yeah, and some changes here, right? It doesn't need too much. And yeah, we need to darken this part. If I look with more attention, and I will start with the HB pencil, but I think I will take at least a B2 pencil for that, because the shape starts to be really dark, so maybe the HP pencil will not be enough. Right, I have to work on this part also. Let's see. Now it starts to get a nice depth. Yes, each pencil. Let's develop this part a little bit more. So let's see, final touches. Don't need to do too much, so I will go over this part because it has a little bit more shadow to it. I will do it with HB pencil too, so it will be a little bit more darker. I barely touched the paper, so I'm not making too much changes. Like that. Well, this part needs to be a little bit more darker, so we'll go over it. Right. Let's make the pencil sharper so we can have a nice transition. Right. As you can see, all the time I am going back to see other parts of the drawing, how they are coming through. Right. Okay. Seems to me that we have a little bit more darker value here beneath the eyebrow. And also the reflected light needs to be a little bit darkened, so it's not that light. Right, so we need to be careful with the reflected light, because reflected light are situated near shadows, and they tend to show to us a little bit lighter than they are, so we need to be careful with them. Also, I want to mention that as you see, this drawing took me a little while, about 6 or 7 or 7.5 hours, and since I had this drawing going on, I didn't stop to do other things. I didn't stop to create other drawings and other themes. Since this was just a demonstration, it was just a study, I didn't put it in it too much time at once. I have worked on this for 2 weeks and didn't work at more than an hour and a half at one session. So I didn't kill all my time with this, but as a beginner you are better doing these studies, because you will need them to understand the form as good as better as you can. And even if you are doing this kind of studies for 45 minutes a week, you can finish one of these studies in a month, or maybe a month and a half, maybe 6 weeks. But if you don't start to make them, you won't finish one of them, and you won't learn from them, and your drawing skill won't start developing. So it's really important to do this kind of studies. The thing is that you don't need to make it in one session or in 2 or 3 days. You can make it for months or weeks. Yeah, so it's not obligatory to finish them in a small amount of time. It needs a lot of time to make one of these studies, but once made, you will understand a lot of things, a lot of shapes and a lot of forms from it, and they will help you with your drawing skills in the future. So if you are wanting to draw portraits and people, you should consider to make this kind of studies. It takes long time, but you shouldn't do a drawing like this in a couple of days. As I said before, you have time to make it. And you will learn enormous things from this kind of studies. So don't be afraid to start them. Right? I want to tell that it seems to me that there are a few mistakes on the drawing, so it's not perfectly done, even since some of the people think that it's perfectly done, but it's not. It has a few flaws. Which I can see, but since the drawing is done, most of the things can't be corrected, so I will need to leave it like this. Right. most of the mistakes, they are I can't correct them because I can't erase. So if you are going dark with something, you can't erase and you can't correct them, but it's a great advantage that you can see your flows, so that is something what you can learn from what you can learn also. So it's not bad if you have flows. And I think this will be the last part of the demonstration. And before I finish, I will point out that the first thing I did, it was sketching out the form and the big shape of the model, and then making the shape from straight lines, which are easier to control, and then using the measuring technique. I have been measuring a lot, and I have a few flows because of measuring, and as you saw, I have corrected that in the process. And then I have worked the whole image simultaneously with the background, so that the background gives you a great image on how your drawing will be. Also, you need to think about that you want to have a nice feeling of the drawing, even if it's just a study, but you need to have a great feeling if you are watching the drawing, to have something more than just a small small study. So I have also changed the background, since the background on the image is all black. I have changed the background. I have worked a little bit more on the background to have a nice little bit more natural background, so I didn't did it all black. And as you can see, I have worked a lot. I have watched, I paid attention for the material, so that you can see that the material of the object is white. I didn't darken the object too much, so I had to work a lot with fine details and fine values, so I don't mess up the white feeling of the object, right? Another thing would be great, a bigger piece of paper, because this paper is small for this kind of studies. As you can see here, I had big problems making the details of the corner of the eye because the small paper. I couldn't use bigger paper because of my my room is a small room, and I have a small webcam which has a mediocre quality. So if I put it to a too high part from the drawing, you won't be able to see some details. Also, I will need to take a picture of this work, so you will see it in whole resolution. I will also remove this scotch from here, so I will be able to finish some parts of the drawing. And as you saw, before I didn't finish all the big shapes. I didn't started to detail the drawing. I started to detail the drawing a lot of pretty late. So we don't start to detail till we don't get every bit of the big shapes aren't in place. We don't start detailing. So that's another thing to be mentioned, right? So I think this is it. This will be the last part of the drawing, last part of the video. I don't know if you are if you will watch all of it, but I hope that some of you are convinced that it is worth watching the whole series. I didn't speed it up, so all the work is done freely, without speed up and without cutting anything out. This is my first long work like this, and it took a lot of time. It took about 7 hours, I think. So I hope that you enjoy it and you learn from it. Alright? And if you have any questions, please let me know. I will gladly answer it if I can. Goodbye.